Catflap Chats, episode 93. Delighted to have former Lion, Wales. I was going to go through your clubs. Obviously, Swansea would be your most recognised.
That's my main club, yeah.
Yeah.
But I spent a bit of time at Bristol, a couple of years at Bristol. Obviously, one at Cardiff.
Yeah.
Played a bit with Western Province out in South Africa, but that was sort of, during my time at Swansea, basically. So yeah, a few clubs, the Barbarians and a number of others, Crauchetes, good touring clubs, those were.
Yeah, there's a theme to these.
Weekends away in Prague and places like that was something we all enjoyed, that's for sure.
Class. So Mr. Rob Jones, and also, let's not to forget, pundit, commentator, after dinner speaker. You do loads at the moment, obviously working for Thomas Carroll in the day-to-day role. So you're pretty busy yourself. Like, what's going on in your world? What's news? What's the last couple of years been like?
Well, the last couple of years have been strange for everyone, hasn't it? But I've been working from home. Basically the past 18 months. Although thankfully things are starting to open up a bit. But my role within Thomas Carroll is very much out and about, meeting people, social events, hosting events on behalf of the company, and really getting around and about. We've got offices throughout South Wales. We've got one in Hereford. I used to be up in London once a week. Yeah. Thankfully I'm starting to go back up to London. And most of what I do is the social side of looking after relationships with clients and identifying and hopefully bringing on board new opportunities. So, it's great to see that, life is starting to resume some sort of normality, because that's basically, without that, my role doesn't necessarily work as effectively as it is in terms of my day-to-day job. And obviously after dinner speaking, that got cut virtually straight away. There was no functions, no dinners. But I've started doing a little bit more. I've done a little bit of media work, but I think my time has more or less come to the end in terms of media work, with all the young guys coming through after finishing the game. So yeah, I'm busy. I've got a fairly young family as well. My oldest daughter's 28. 29. Sorry, no. God, I know, 29. My oldest son is 22 in a couple of weeks' time. My youngest boy is 13 next week, and my daughter will be 6 in October. And I've got a granddaughter who's 5. So it's all a bit bonkers, and they're quite spread out. So hopefully they're keeping me young. So it's all go, no doubt. It's all go.
Those after dinner events will be a nice break then from all the kids.
It will. Seriously, I mean, at the moment, my wife and daughter are home. They both got COVID positive. So obviously they can't go anywhere for 10 days until next Sunday. My son's had it. So yeah, I'm stuck at home, working from home with children and my missus around me, which isn't a great mix, really, is it? Let's be honest. But it is, no, it's good to see. I mean, there's quite a few functions already sort of in the pipeline. I'm not one that wants to be out every Saturday night or anything like that, but certainly, I enjoy, there's always this thing with after dinner speaking. It's like the day before you're about to go somewhere, whether it's in South Wales or further afield, you'll always question, why have I said yes to this? But then, when you travel and when you get there in particular, it's always good fun, good laugh. And I tend to stay as long as I can to sort of, have some more banter with the people around me. So, because I am a social animal, I suppose, I enjoy people's company, and, after dinner speaking and the events that I've always been part of, and rugby generally and sport generally is probably suited me down to the ground.
Oh, we're very similar in that respect. Like, I am very social. I had a few more beers than you the other week when I seen you, but for the last 18 months, I'm exactly like you. My job is to go meet people, meet clients, help solve their problems. And with that comes lots of hospitality and events, golf and all that stuff. And so when you're stuck in for a year and a half, then you kind of like, oh, I do want to get back out. But it's almost getting to the point again now where I'm going, I can't wait for 3 weeks' time when there's nothing booked for 2 weeks. Like, so I can have a bit more break.
Yeah, I think we're all looking at life a little bit differently. I've got to be honest. I'm, reflecting on how busy I was beforehand, and then we've had this period of no activity at all, basically. Apart from working from home and trying to adapt and do things differently. But yeah, I am questioning, do I want to be as busy as that again? Probably not. Do I want to be busy? Absolutely. But it's getting that balance, isn't it, between the two? And I think, golf days, there's lots of golf days and that kind of now. I've been pretty shit at golf the last couple of years. However, it is nice to go and play with either your mates or around people that you know quite well, and just spending 4 or 5 hours with them and grabbing a beer or whatever afterwards. I mean, that's what it's all about. Even just, the fact that local club rugby is started back in, my local club, Trebanos, is where I've been born and brought up. I coach the junior section or part of the junior section. My brother coaches the senior side, and just going down there now on a Saturday, not knowing, in the next week or so when they're home, and then it's that 2 or 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours afterwards in the club with your mates, and that banter is, I mean, it's without it. I mean, I'd struggle. It's been so important. It's been my bloody oxygen, really, for so many years. And that, 6 or 7 pints, and then you're back home at 8 o'clock.
That's
potentially.
But even then, like, even if you rock back in at 10 or 11, you have a good, like, I used to be all about, like, in Cardiff, 10 mil lane, open till 5, 6 a.m.
Yeah.
I'd be the first one out and I'd make it a thing. I'd be the last one standing. Now I'm happy to go home at like 1 a.m, midnight, get a half decent kip, get up the next day, and I'm like, oh, actually, I've had a great day. I'm like chasing the buzz after 10, 11 o'clock. Like, I don't need that anymore. So I think
I'm with you there. I'm not older than you as well, Mikey. I'm 56 coming up now. So those days are gone. I mean, I enjoy a glass of wine at home. And, even when I go down the club, you'll have your gallon or whatever, right, which is more than enough for me. And then I slowly head home, walk down the road, but then I sit and have a couple of glasses of wine with my missus, fall asleep then watching Match of the Day or whatever it is. And then get up knowing that my youngest boy is playing rugby at 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And, we've got to be down there at 9:30, but you feel fresh enough to be able to do it without, as you said, the late 2 or 3 o'clock nights that we used to be involved with.
How did you find that transition? Because a lot of the people I've had on, I suppose, are still playing or only finished playing in the last couple of years. For you, it's been a bit longer. So I think you finished from all rugby, was it 2001? How did you find that transition then from going from rugby and everything you'd done, the clubs, the highs, the lows, into business? Because I think lots of maybe it's social media emphasizes it a lot more now, but I think there is a certain type of player or person that struggles after finishing professional sport, and it's almost like they can't fill that void, and the buzz isn't there anymore. How did you find it?
I found it difficult to finish a game that I played all my life, and then you think, well, you make a decision that's basically going to take everything you've worked for and lived for, I suppose, since you were 6 or 7 or 8 years of age. It's no longer going to be there. But there is the reality of knowing as well that it's my time has come. I think it's right for me to move on. I suppose the difference with me is I played a short spell of professional sport. The bulk of my rugby career was in the amateur days, which meant that I was working as everyone else was. With the flexibility to some degree that the companies give me to go away on the tours that I went on and everything else. But generally, I had to get up on a Monday morning and rock up at an office and so work and get out and about and finish at 5:30 and that type of thing. And then train on a Monday night with Swansea, train on a Wednesday night with Swansea, and play on a Saturday. That's how it was. You work hard in your own time to brush up on your skills and your fitness and everything else. But ultimately, sport in early 80s sort of late 80s, when I was starting to play for Wales, was very much amateur. And I think as a result of that, even when I went into the my professional career, which is only sort of 4 or 5 years, when I went to Bristol, when the game opened up in 96, I kept a relationship with my employer. I wanted to make sure that, when I did finish, I had something that I could fall straight back into. So I always kept a working relationship with Well, as it was there was a company called CE Heaths that became Opus, and the bulk of the Thomas Carroll contingent, now a lot of them, are people that have come from Heaths and Opus and Willis and into Thomas Carroll. So they're people that I've known for many, many years. And then the opportunity to sort of finish. I was lucky, obviously, I had a lot of media opportunities after that. So I worked a lot on Scrum 5 and Radio 5 Live and what have you. And that kept me in touch with the game, which was a good thing as well. I didn't just walk away and then that was it. I was still going to matches on a Saturday. I was still going to World Cups. I was still going to Lions tours, but in a professional broadcasting position as opposed to anything else. So that kept me close. I worked for a company for a little while that were doing apprenticeship programs within rugby. So that kept me close to, your Scarlets and your professional outfits. Yeah. So I was probably more fortunate than most that although I wasn't doing what I loved and enjoyed for so long, and that was playing the game, I still had a close connection with the game, and I always kept the professional business career aspect alongside anything I did in the professional rugby sense.
In terms of that professional, like you look at amateur rugby and professional, and you always see it on social media. Now I don't know how prevalent you are on social media, but you always see it where it's like, players of yesteryear wouldn't last now in today's game, and then players of yesteryear were far more skillful, and it was all about attacking. And there's always these arguments, especially with Lions tours and World Cup, Six Nations, all that stuff. What which one did you prefer more? Like, I know you only had a stint at the professional game, but moving across to England, playing there, and doing it that way, like, was it a massive difference? And did you enjoy it more? Enjoy it less? Like, what was it like?
I mean, again, the game. I think the game has almost evolved every 6 to 9 to 12 months since professional rugby's come in. People have become more professional. Things are analysed in more detail. There's new technologies and sports science that is helping the individual become bigger, stronger, faster. So I mean, the game is a totally different game now to what it was in my day. I'd like to think that, certainly skill-wise, natural skill then, probably more so than developed skill, because there are lots of processes now which allows you to develop, passing ability, passing off both hands, kicking, all these things. That certainly weren't there when I was coming through. So I just learned my trade. Perhaps having, family that were, my dad was a decent rugby player, but perhaps not committed to go much further than he did in terms of local club rugby and what have you. My brothers were sort of, played schoolboy international rugby and what have you. So there was an element of natural ability within the family, which hopefully I had a part of. And I just love playing and trying things and everything else. I mean, the game, when I was playing for Wales to start with, the team was selected. We had a training session on a Sunday. We got together on a Thursday for an away game. So we had a session then. We'd have 2 training sessions. And generally, as backs, Jiffy and Bleddyn Bowen would run the backs. We'd have, we'd have a coaching team who would sort of guide us and support us. But it was down to us in terms of what we do, what we tried, what moves should we run through. We never analysed the opposition. We knew who they were. And we just went out there and played. And hopefully our ability as rugby players was going to be good enough to win matches. And whereas now it's so analysed. I had 3 years down at the Scarlets as part of the coaching team. And, we would analyse the opposition, not just from one game, but maybe their last 4 or 5 games. We'd analyse every individual within that, and we'd get the players to look at that as well. We would identify their defensive system or systems. We would see how they attack off lineouts, how they attack off scrums, where their strengths and weaknesses, how can we identify them. We would try and break down our game in order to capitalise on what we think we can do to get beyond their defence. I mean, seriously, in 1983 to 1994, we didn't do any of that. None of it. I mean, we'd have a Betamax maybe to start with, or a VHS tape in the end of their last game, which was obviously blurry. We fast forwarded or whatever, and that was it. That's as far as it got. We'd look at that game and think, right, okay, he's their best line-out jumper. He carries really well in midfield. We have to try and stop them, and that was it. So I know I haven't really answered your question, but I'm just saying that the difference is massive. Massive. I mean,
it is,
and now physically, no doubt, because of sports science and the fact people are professional and it's their job, it's their business, are going to be stronger. They are going to be quicker. They are going to be more powerful. And I think that there are players who played in the 70s, the 80s, who, had they been part of the game today, would have been just as good in terms of their skill and their ability, but they would be that much better because they'd be bigger, stronger, and faster. Okay. So I think, a Gareth Edwards in a professional era, for argument's sake, would still have been as dangerous because he had the natural ability that he possessed in the 70s, but he would be physically in a position to match up to the opposition. So that's my theory on it anyway.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because you mentioned Gareth Edwards then. You won a 5 scrum halves to get over 50 caps for Wales. What did you have, 54 caps?
Yeah, Gareth had 53.
Yeah, and then you got Rob Howley, Dwayne Peel, and Mike Phillips. So that's a good quintet of scrum halves to get over 50 caps for Wales. It's not bad, is it?
Oh no, I look. I mean, to be in that company is fantastic. And I said, there was a point where I think I had my 54th cap or my 53rd cap. I think it was just before Ian Evans, because Ian then became sort of the leading cap player in Wales. But yeah, there was a time where I was there or thereabouts in terms of the most cap player in Wales, and then obviously my career finished in terms of international rugby. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that, and again, there's different eras there, and Mike and Dwayne and Owlers to some degree, all played more in the professional era. For Mike and Dwayne, there was a lot more international rugby, I suppose, during that period, because World Cups and summer tours and the Six Nations as opposed to 5 Nations, the Autumn International. So, people there's a lot of good international scrum halves who will be coming through and getting 50, 60, 100 caps, over the course of the next 20, 30 years. Because the game and the amount of rugby played globally allows you to do that. But yeah, it's good to be with those guys. I've got to be honest. I said I had 53 caps as a scrum half. Obviously, you couldn't come off the bench like they do now. But I had one when I came on the wing. The only time I came off the bench, I came on the wing over in Ireland, and I was up against what was his bloody name now, man? Simon Gagan. Simon Gagan was a great winger, mad as a hatter, but quick and strong and everything else. And I thankfully, I only had 3 minutes to survive, right? We were hanging on in there, and the ball didn't go anywhere near him. And during those 3 or 4 minutes, but you talk about shitting yourself in the game, and I've got to be honest, there was that coming on at that late stage, and I think we were hanging on to a win, was probably one of my scariest moments on a rugby field.
When you look back in your career now, you've obviously got an unbelievable career. I think it was almost 300 appearances for Swansea. You obviously played for a couple of other clubs. You mentioned, I think, what did you say, a season with Cardiff, a stint with Western Province, a few years with Bristol. Like, when you look at that club career, it seems when I was reading reviews and posts and stories and stuff, you were loved, and it seems you absolutely loved playing for Swansea. And then when you look at your Wales career, like, you played with some unbelievable players. You mentioned Jiffy and that just now, but like, I don't know, I've got the feeling that it wasn't quite, maybe not as enjoyed, is might be the wrong term, but do you look back as fondly on your Wales career and kind of everything as you do as your club career, or not?
I think you can split my international career down into, the early years, 86 to sort of 88, 89.
Yeah.
Was probably without doubt probably 89, because obviously that took the Lions total Australia in as well.
Yeah.
So 86, 87, 88. we talk about it, making your debut, and we did genuinely. I think we were building an incredibly strong team at the time. But then, and it wouldn't happen today, Rugby League came in and took the likes of Jiffy and, John Devs, Paul Moriarty, all these guys over the course of the next 4 or 5 years. They all left and, left us under strength in terms of, quality, I think. But I think because if you look, 88, 87, we went to the World Cup and won, came third in the World Cup. 88, we won a Triple Crown. Probably should have beaten France to win the Grand Slam. And, those 2 or 3 years, we went to New Zealand then and got hammered in New Zealand. And that was probably the turning point for Jiffy as well. Thinking, right, we either change and we either become more professional in our approach or we're never, ever going to beat the All Blacks.
Yeah.
And he's been proven right, I suppose. And then obviously went north, didn't he? But there was that. And then there was all the changes in coaches and everything else during the 90s. Leading up to sort of 95 when we got knocked out of the World Cup in South Africa, which more or less finished my international career. So yeah, there's I think there was a tough old period. The 90s was hard. The 80s I enjoyed. So if it's half and half international rugby. I loved the early years. I loved every year in Swansea. There's no doubt about it. Swansea was my home club. It's where I started. It's where I finished. But international rugby, it is highs and lows, ups and downs. We were doing really well early on, and then it was a tough 3 or 4 final years when we were up against it. Virtually every game. We weren't as good, and certainly weren't as confident as some of the earlier sides that I played in.
Do you remember your debut down at was it England at Twickenham? What do you remember of that?
I remember it. David Pickering was captain. Jiffy was obviously 10. Blenheim Bowen, fellow Trebanos boy, was in the centre. And I made my debut with John Devereux, who was the same age as me, played sort of schoolboy trial stuff with him. And a guy called David Waters, who was Newport second row, played about 600 games for Newport. So the 3 of us were debutants on the day. And again, it was just the build-up was obviously the excitement of getting to know that you've been selected. There was a party in the local rugby club and the local pub on the weekend before. And then the weekend was just mentally planning and preparing myself. I was going into work. I worked for a finance company that Guy Richards used to play for, Swansea Wales owned. And then I think it was Thursday, we travelled up to Reading, a place outside of Reading. We had a day or so up there, and then it was like a drive-in in the morning into Twickenham. It's bizarre. And you think now, our warm-up, I was always one at the hotel now. I'd go out for 20 minutes, I'd just have a little jog, stretch, just try and get myself into the day as best I can. I said, do that, lock up, throw a couple of balls around. And I virtually did that throughout my career, even, before Swansea games back here. But we got there, we went in the changing room, and that's it. You warm up in the changing room. You do your 1 to 10s 3 times and roll your shoulders, and then you're out, having not passed the ball, kicked the ball, made a tackle or anything, as they do today. And then whistle goes, and you're expected to, to fly into the opposition, and your first pass has got to be pinpoint accurate. Your first kick has got to, land on a sixpence, and it's bizarre looking back, but that's how it was. That's how it was. And then we came off. I mean, we lost. I think I remember Rob Andrew kicked a drop goal, left-footed drop goal to win the game. That was. And I remember having a watch. He was on. Who was he on? Terry Wogan's program, I think, on the Monday then. The hero. Yeah. But, and then came here, and there were big baths in Twickenham then, individual baths plus the big team bath, which again you would never have now. And we just sat in there with a beer, got out, we had a big dinner in the Hilton Hotel that night. And then on the way home, we stopped off in a hotel on the bus in Swindon. We had Sunday lunch, and back home, and it was like, right, I think we see you next week, boys. See you on Wednesday. We're training on Wednesday. Different.
Like,
Very
I
different.
can't fathom how that would work in today's world now in the professional game.
I know. And again, you think there was obviously a fair bit of money around the game then, because you'd have bigger crowds because, again, you'd have 100,000 people maybe at Murrayfield because that's the way it was. So there was a lot of money going into the game, but it wasn't necessarily going out anywhere because they didn't pay very many people, just a few admin people within the Welsh Rugby Union or the RFU. And, coaches were paid maybe just travel allowance. And we used to get 10 pence a mile. And we'd all jump in one car to go up to Waterton Cross for training, but then go individually to see the secretary to get individual, I don't know, it would have been about £6 or something like that, whatever it was. But in the end, they realised that, they were paying everyone expenses, but they could also see that everyone, there was a carload of 5 people turning up. So they even clamped down on that. They stopped that in the end.
Bastards.
Wrong, man. It was wrong.
I know.
But the one thing you did say is, would I change it? Absolutely not. No. I mean, there's a lot of good friends I've made in the amateur game. That I'm not saying I wouldn't have made it in the professional game, but I wouldn't even take the risk of not making those friendships. At the game being professional, I wouldn't. I loved the time we played in. Absolutely, 100%.
Class. And like, when you look at your international career, was it 3 World Cups, 2 Lions tours? You said this the other day, or I didn't realise this. You played for the Lions before a Lions tour as well. So you played. Am I right? So you played for the Lions before you had your international.
No. Basically, my first season was 1986.
Yeah.
So I played obviously the 5 Nations as it was then.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the 5 Nations, they selected a Lions team because the Lions used to tour every 3 years.
Yeah.
So in '86, they would have toured South Africa. But South Africa were obviously out of the global game because of apartheid.
Yeah.
So there was an international celebration as well. I think it was the IRB's 100 years or whatever it was. So there was a celebratory game and a Lions game against a rest of the world 15. So that was played in Cardiff at the end of the 5 Nations, and I was selected for that. So it was a one-off international. The team was selected by the home nations in exactly the same way. We had blazers, ties, the same scenario as any touring team.
Yeah.
And Colin Deans and a number of other players who played then, Colin Deans was captain from Scotland, they've been pushing for that to be recognised as an official test because it was selected. You would have gone on tour. And about probably 18 months ago, it was they actually passed it as an official test. So that basically counts as my first Lions test match was in '86, and then obviously '89 I went to Australia, and I went in '93 then to New Zealand. New Zealand, I was on the bench to a fellow countryman who played for England, Dewi Morris, but he was a great guy. So I didn't play any test match rugby out there.
Yeah.
But obviously '89 was when I played all 3 tests, and thankfully we managed to secure a series win.
Scrapping with your good mate Nick Farr-Jones, weren't you?
I was, yes. That's an interesting story, just in terms of how all that came about. We played all their provincial sides and stuffed their provincial sides, and that included, Queensland, who are the Reds now, and Waratahs, as they are now, New South Wales, and ACT were the Brumbies. So those were the big 3 provincial teams out there. And they had all their international players playing against the Lions prior to the test series. And we beat them, we didn't stuff them, but we beat them comfortably enough to think we should win this test series quite easily. So I was selected for the first test, and we went in. It was in Sydney Football Stadium, and we got stuffed. We got beaten 32 points to 12, I think it was. Absolutely blown away. So when we come off the field, you know, Ian McGeechan was coach actually the Lions coach for the first time.
Yeah.
He sort of put his arm around everyone and said, look, you know, we're all disappointed, but you know, we've still got 2 tests. We've got a week to turn it around. But he came over and deliberately sat with me for a little while. And he spoke to me about how good the Australian captain, my opposite number, Nick Farr-Jones, was. And he said, Rob, he was outstanding today. He was the difference. He made them take him, and Michael Liner controlled the game. He said, major strength for Australian rugby. But he said, if you can get into him and knock him off his game next week, we'll win next week and we'll win this series. And genuinely, I didn't think much of it. We went out, we had a couple of beers that night and got up in the morning, sat down, and we actually put the VHS tape on of the game just to have a quick look at how we performed, how badly we performed. And, you know, he was constantly complimenting how good Nick Farr-Jones was. And again, looking at me and Gary Armstrong, who was Scottish scrum half, my understudy, and said, look, knock him off his game next week and we win this test match. He said, because, you know, we need to get into him. And he did that throughout the whole fucking week now. Seriously, he just
winding the coil up. Just winding it up. Yeah,
every training session, every time he saw me, every time there was an opportunity for him to sit down and just mention his name, that was enough. By which time we got up to the Saturday, and luckily I was selected. There were quite a few changes, and I remember getting up. I got up, I had breakfast, I got changed because we actually went to the game in our blazers and that then, right? And I went down and I sat down and watched that game again. And before the team meeting, before everyone else came down, because I was like steam coming out my ears scenario.
Yeah.
Loved and respected the guy massively, and I just wanted to do it for him. And we had the team meeting, which was brilliant. We got to the ground. I could just sense there was a much better feeling. You know, if we lost that game, we might as well go home. We'd lost the series.
Yeah.
So there was this genuine feeling that we can do it. We were going to change tact. We were going to be far more physical. We weren't just going to go out there and try and play rugby and beat them at, you know, a game they were very good at. We brought in a lot of the English cavalry up front, some real physical guys in your Mike Teagues and your Wade Dooleys and that. So, yeah, and in the changing room, it was just bonkers. People were batting each other. Honestly, throwing weights around. Brian Moore was batting Guy Young was batting walls. And it was crazy. And then there's the moment of calm when Ian McGeechan has his final couple of words, and all about us, all about the group, all about the families, the communities that we represent back home, all that. And it was brilliant. And then there was just, you know, you just look at him and you think, we got to do it for you. We got to do it. He just got up, he walked away, and Finlay Calder, the captain, just gets up and says, we don't fucking take a backward step. And it's just bonkers then again for that last minute or so before we're heading down the tunnel onto the ground. And so, yeah, we were there. And within minutes really of the kickoff, it was an Australian scrum, and there wasn't anything pre-planned really, other than I had to do something to wind him up, to get into him and under his skin. And I thought, right, I'll step on his foot. So I'm only 11 stone soaking wet. So I mean, I stepped on his foot, didn't get a huge reaction to start with, but I started to twist and push and pull. And then I got the reaction that I was probably hoping for, but I know Ian McGeechan wanted, and he just threw the ball away and just piled into me. I piled into him, and this almighty punch-up erupted.
Yeah.
And I think, as a man said, you know, I mean, I didn't mind starting it. I had no intentions of finishing it off. So I grabbed hold of him. I was crutched up to him on the floor, you know, a little bit of handbag punches going in between the two of us, but all around us, seriously.
Carnage.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, Guy Young was into his opposite number. Brian Moore, not surprisingly, he's fighting Tom Lawton, David Soul, and you got the two policemen, you know, Wade Dooley and Paul Ackford, who were fighting. Finlay Calder was tough as nails. He's into his opposite number. Dean Richards with his baggy shorts, socks down by his ankle. And the one man, he was voted player of the series, rightfully as well, because he brought a real edge to us, was Iron Man Mike Teague, the Gloucester builder. And And, not condoning what happened, but he was knocking them out for fun. They were just dropping like flies, right? And as this is all happening now, my Lions forwards are just walking past me. They were backtracking. They were dropping like flies. And there was all these boots coming in everywhere. And, I seriously, nothing caught me, but a few unfortunately caught Nick Farr-Jones, because when the referee got the two culprits up in the end, I'm on one side and I'm immaculate now, not a mark on me. The hair's perfect, and whereas on the opposite side, Nick Farr-Jones is an absolute mess. Honestly, there's blood coming from cut above his eye, bleeding nose, his lip. His own words when we've done this quite a bit in terms of, after dinner and things like that, the two of us together. He said his jersey was just covered in claret. He was in blood everywhere. Yeah. And I did have that photo up in the hallway in the house.
Class.
For many years, because it was actually called the Battle of Ballymore after that, right? And anyone who came in and looked at it, they were always looking and thinking, "Rob, you did that, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I did that." Right, I did. Well, I knew full well all those were, the boys booted lump out of him. But you talk about a major strength that was identified by a great coach in terms of, he got to know people so well. He said, that's a major strength, but we can make it a weakness. And if it's a weakness, then we can win the series. So how do we do it? And he got me to do something I wouldn't ordinarily do.
Yeah.
He picked a side that would make sure that physically we are going to top. And from that moment on, Nick Farr-Jones just moaned and groaned at the referee, and he was nowhere near as involved in their performance and instigating the success that he had in the first test. I say we won that test in 1912, and thankfully went on to win the third test 1918 back in Sydney. So yeah, it's a proud moment. A little boy from Trebarnos was about 11 stone and 5'6". He was regarded as a hard man of Lions rugby.
dropping people. Did you have beers with him after that though, or was it proper separate after that?
I've got to be honest. After that, there wasn't a great atmosphere, right? Because genuinely, if you look at some of the photos, you could even see them online. He was in a bit of a mess, and it would never happen in this day and age, right?
Yeah, of course.
But over time, and yes, I spoke to him afterwards. There was never any major animosity. That was the nature of the game. In fact, they reckon that test helped them win the World Cup in '91, because they realised they couldn't win international rugby against some of the bigger nations like France, unless they had a real presence up front.
Yeah,
that changed, and they went on to win the '91 World Cup, and with Nick Farr-Jones as captain. But I've seen a lot of him over the years, and we get on really well. Rugby does that. In fairness, there's very little animosity for any period of time, and I say the game sort of keeps us together and has brought us closer. Really, we've always done stuff. Whether it's Lions or whether it's World Cups, we've always done things together.
After so you obviously did, was that 89? You did 93 with New Zealand as well. Obviously, you said that was a different tour. You were the understudy on that tour, and you didn't play much Test rugby there. Like after the '95 World Cup, you obviously went to that, didn't quite go to plan. You stopped playing international rugby then. Did you get a call? Did you get a look in for the '97 Lions or even the '99 World Cup? Because you still would have been of an age where you were still playing high-level rugby. You were still playing.
Well, it was interesting. I think Kevin Bowden came in after the '95 World Cup, and I know Kevin quite well. I played sevens rugby with him, when he was at London Welsh, and we had a conversation, and he was just looking at the next World Cup in '99, and he probably felt that there were some young players like Rob Howley and guys coming through that were better suited to what he wanted, and that was fine. He knew where I was. he never said the doors completely closed. But as I said, Rob Howley came in, he established himself. There was Andy Moore, there was Paul John, there were a few others who were sort of thereabouts as well. So, the World Cup, which was disappointing. I felt personally the World Cup went reasonably well. And I know we lost to Ireland. We did okay against a brilliant New Zealand side. But I realised as well, by the time the next World Cup came, I would have been in my 30s, and so I thought, right, okay, it is what it is. I ended up becoming a professional. I was going to stay in Swansea, and then a couple of offers came in, and Bristol, just across the bridge, attracted me. And whilst I was at Bristol, the '97 World Cup was one I probably personally targeted. No, World Cup, sorry, Lions. Yeah, and I was playing against the likes of Matt Dawson, who was up at Northampton, and we didn't have the greatest Bristol side, but I was still in the shop window to some degree, not playing international rugby, but being watched by Fran Cotton and some of the other people, and we did have conversations. There were conversations about availability and that. So as it was, I didn't get the nod, but it gave me real incentive, I suppose, to try and perform as well as I could for Bristol in order to go on that tour. And I think once that came, '99 World Cup was I felt was out of reach. I was still playing, but again, you had Rob Howley, you had Dyke Llewellyn, you had a few other boys who were local, home, and I had been part of 3 or 4 years of building up towards a World Cup with Graham Henry and all that type of thing. But I still enjoyed playing the game, and I had the opportunity to go back to Swansea then, my home club. My brother was down at the time and was the number one, but I was keen just to help out and finish off in the club I started, and where it all began, so to speak.
What is it about Swansea and the club that you loved? Because you must have had offers over the years to play at other clubs at the same level. You went to Cardiff for a year. What was that experience of Western Province like as well? Like, that must have been a bit different.
Western Province was brilliant. I mean, Western Province, obviously, Cape Town. I was based in Cape Town. Yeah. I was living in a flat opposite Table Mountain, beach in front of me. Okay, the weather, it was their winter, and Cape Town weather, South African weather, is a little bit up and down depending where you are. But it's a fantastic country, it's a fantastic city, and I've always grown up. My eldest brother was a huge South African rugby fan. Just the way they played over the years, whether it was going back to Nasport and Danny Gerber and all these great South African players, and I was given the opportunity as South Africa were coming out of apartheid to almost, I think Western Province were keen. They're quite a multicultural, cosmopolitan city and province, and they just felt maybe if they got an international rugby player from the Southern Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere across, to get involved in some of the coaching duties. I worked with the province in a development capacity. So I was going out to townships now to work with black and coloured youngsters. Fantastic, on top of playing a high level of rugby, very physical game, as South Africa has always been. But I loved it. I absolutely. My oldest boy is named Tian, and I named him after my South African, or my Western Province captain, Tian Strauss, who I'm still very friendly with, and I played alongside Joel Stransky, who's a World Cup winner, Chester Williams, and all of these guys. Chester unfortunately passed away, but they're good friends of mine, and again, rugby has allowed me to do that. So that was a great experience. I went in '94 for 6 months. I actually had a knee injury, which prevented me from playing in one of the cup finals. And then the following year, I stayed after the World Cup, and I've been so lucky with injuries. But I had another knee injury then, and that curtailed my thing out there. But I kept in touch with the guys out there. I'm still said, very friendly with Tian Strauss, and see him whenever he's across or I'm over there. So it was a great experience. But then, Swansea allowed me to do that as well. They allowed me to, I think we won in '94. We beat Aberavon to win the Heineken League or whatever it was called at the time.
Yeah.
But allowed me to fly over and play the season out there. And in fact, I arrived the day of the first ever general elections when Nelson Mandela came into power.
Okay.
So I arrived and I was picked up by a friend of mine, FC Smith, who was playing second row for. And there was a little bit of concern that, they didn't know whether there was going to be like a civil war out there because, and it was anything but, because, there were queues 500 yards, half a mile of black and white people just waiting to vote. And I was, I was in a position to be able to see that happening. And we just drove around, the different areas, Stellenbosch and all that. And it was absolutely brilliant, and then the following day, Nelson Mandela's in power. So it was a hell of a time to arrive in a country that have seen so much upheaval and everything else over so many years. So, but yeah, and then going back to Swansea, it was my first club. It's the club I used to watch as a youngster. If my dad took me anywhere, it was down to watch Swansea. And over the years, and going back to Guy Richards was captain in my first year, and Guy he was a great player, a good friend. And I think every era I played, there were great people in the club. And I'm sure, it would have been the same anyone starting off in Cardiff or Pontypridd or Bridgend. But yeah, I just loved everything about the club, the atmosphere, the playing surface, because it was, near the coast. It was never muddy. If it rained, it would go straight through. It was a lovely surface to play on, compared to maybe going to Rodney Parade, which was a shithole, like, in the middle of winter. No disrespect, I know they've done a lot there, but it was, or going up to Crosskeys, Panley Park on a Wednesday night. But you could virtually guarantee wind, rain, sun. You'd always have the best surface in St Helens, and anyone who came to play there would say the same. So yeah, it's obviously the club's dear to my heart, as is Trebanos, my local club. And it's, if anyone asks me who do you play for, yes, I'll always mention your Cardiffs, your Bristols, but one stands out head and shoulders above the rest, and that's Swansea.
That's mate, I love it. I love, like, you've been talking today about like some of your mates and stuff. They're some of the best players the game's seen. Like, and you're just like, oh yeah, mates of them. Oh yeah. Crap with him, like. Well, you've done it all. You've done it all with the best players, haven't you? You've mixed it up with all of them.
Yeah, I know, and like, I was like Friday night now was myself, Stuart Davis, Jiffy, and Tony Clement going out for a couple of pints and a bite to eat. We don't do it often enough, but we're doing it. And again, I'm not throwing names in here, but Will Carlin messaged me this morning just to say about a get together in Bath. Me, him, Jiffy, Clem, seems to be a thing, and Mike T.
Class.
And again, we're looking to do that now sometime in October. And yeah, I've been lucky. I think with you as well. You've got lots of mates who are regarded elsewhere as flipping heck. Lee Byrne or Jamie Roberts or Nick, all these guys who are iconic names within the game, but to you, they're friends, aren't they? They're mates.
Just people, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And I've got to be honest, there are very few people in the game that I've played with or against or met that I can't say are anything other than normal blokes.
Yeah, most of them are.
Guys you'd be quite happy to have a beer with. Very few that I would. I can't think of many at all. I remember Tian Strauss was always my. I think someone bought me a couple of shots or something like that when I was playing out there in '94, and he was almost like in his very broad Afrikaner accent. Is like, you don't drink that, you drink beer. My daddy brought me up just to drink beer. And it's like, as if fucking right, okay, I'll drink beer.
Yeah,
no man. But it's just, I know, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So
What's the future then, pal? Just one last thing? Think back on one memory. If you forgot everything you'd done in the game, but you could remember and replay one thing in your head, what would it be?
Yeah, like this is live. Look at Amazon Prime, man. It's just right. So what? Sorry, one thing.
One memory, one moment that you look back and just go, if I lost it all, but I could keep this one, that would be the one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, people always talk about your first cap. People talk about being selected for the Lions, then winning a Lions series, or and they're all massive moments in your rugby career, because when you grow up, you strive to play for Wales, and I think initially it's like Wales under 15s as it was in my day.
Yeah.
Then it's senior international rugby to follow your Gerald Davises, your Phil Bennett and Gareth Edwards. That was my dream. But when you get there, we are so fortunate that we've got one step higher. That's a Lions opportunity every 4 years. And then you strive for that. And then when you're on a Lions tour, you want to win a series. So there's three moments there that are huge, difficult, to choose between them all. But I think playing my first test or being selected for my first Lions test is probably a moment that I'll cherish forever, because that's the ultimate. Then I can't go any higher in terms of what I can do as a scrum half a Welsh scrum half. I can't do any more than that. So that has to stand out, I think. But closely followed by the other two that I mentioned.
Well, I suppose the Lions is a culmination of everything else that's come before it. The school days, your Swansea debut as a school kid, all the caps, all the clubs, the Wales debuts, the lows that come before the highs. Like, it's a culmination of all of that.
I think it is. It's everything you sort of aim and work for. And you know full well that there's a lot more people who played for Wales than have done for the Lions, and there's a lot less Welsh players international players who've played for the Lions. So I mean, it's quite a unique little club, I suppose, and I'm fortunate to have been part of it. And yeah, I think it is. It's a culmination of everything, and yeah, I just absolutely. But I said I've actually loved every moment of my career, even if things weren't going well with Wales. You go back to Swansea and you're up there again.
Yeah.
Playing with your mates and sort of playing club rugby down there, and then when things are going well with Wales, well, there's nothing better, and things go well with the Lions. But yeah, there have been ups and downs, but we've had a laugh along the way, man.
That's the best thing.
Tours in my day were real good fun.
Actual tours.
Well, yeah, they were. I mean,
no social media.
Yeah. No, well, exactly. No social media, thankfully. But yeah, it was just, the social side was very much part of the trip, because you got to know people that much better over a couple of beers and a laugh and a joke, and that you have to do that. I think it's we obviously we were encouraged to do it regularly, but it just happened. I mean, nobody would go out a night, 2 nights before a test match. That wouldn't happen, because people were professional enough in terms of their approach and knowing where they were and what they were representing, not to do that. But after a game, yeah, absolutely, let's get a head down and go for it.
You say that. I think when I was in uni, 2004 or 5, I can't remember which year, the All Blacks came over one of the autumn internationals, and they trained on King Coyd in Newark, or Cardiff Met now, and I was there. And we went out. They were out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They didn't go out Friday. They absolutely smashed Wales on the Saturday.
we are the greatest rugby team in the world. But people's perception, see, I mean, I remember Wigan Rugby League were always the same. They loved it. They loved getting on it.
Yeah.
But they were beating everyone hands down.
Yeah.
But they had such a tight group, and the camaraderie and things like that was second to none. And people's perception, the All Blacks is, oh, they're professional, they don't drink, they don't do this. Absolute bollocks, because they are, they love it. They love it. And any of the players who've come over here and played rugby for the regions and what have you, everyone says they're over here and they love it. Absolutely
just good,
love it. Yeah. And it's part of what they do to get ready for international rugby or club rugby and things like that. It's part of what happens out there. But yeah, so it's got to be, man. It's so important, and you know, like I can't imagine. We used to go to the Copthorne Hotel. That's where our base was, and we used to have, it was Tony actually, the concierge. We'd have him on sort of, you know, get ready now because we've got a team meeting. We're all supposed to be heading up to bed now about 11 o'clock. Can you meet us by the back door at 11:15 to take us down to Kiwis in Cardiff?
Kiwis is still there.
No, honestly, that's what we did. The next thing, there was about 5 or 6 of us in, creeping out, jumping in. And in fairness, he'd come and pick us up then about 2 o'clock and get back, get up in the morning, nobody knew any different. Brilliant.
I fucking love it, mate. Hey, thank you so much for coming on, pal.
Oh, pleasure, Maggie. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And
no, it's all right. Are you on social media or anything at all if people want to see what you're up to?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. Look, I'm not an active user, but I am. I'm on Twitter, Rob N. Jones 9, I think it is.
Yeah.
And well, I say that's about it. And LinkedIn, but that's more businessy, isn't it? So
yeah, of course. Hey, thank you so much.
Hey, pleasure.
Hopefully catch you at an event soon, pal. No doubt we'll cross paths at some hospitality or something.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. With Shanks somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. He's everywhere, that guy. We played in Matthew Watkins' golf day the other day. He was there. The other was that Wednesday? Loads of them. Yeah, him, Nicky, Pete from Gennaro, Henson.
Right,
loads of them were there. It was class. Really, really good. I
would imagine that because Matthew J was a good man in fairness. And
yeah, 50-odd, 60-odd people, I think. So, more. Must be more. 25 teams. Must be 100 people then.
Yeah, I would be.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. So, yeah, mate, I'll catch you soon, right? Thank you so much.
All right, good man. See you soon, right?
Top man, Rob. Catch you later. Ciao, bye.
Okay, bye.